So with Fantastic Four First Steps right around the corner, I thought I'd go back and look at some previous adaptations of Marvel's First Family, but not the nostalgic duology of movies that came out in the 2000s, and definitely not the dreadful Fan4stick movie that came out a decade ago. Instead, I wanted to look at the animated series that nobody talks about, Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes. I feel like this is the forgotten Fantastic Four series. I think a lot of people are familiar with the 90s animated series, that really bad one from the 60s that all the MF Doom edits are from.
Don't talk about my mom, Joe.
And that one from the 70s that replaced Human Torch with Herbie. But Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes is a much more modern adaptation of these characters. In this video, I want to talk about the tone of the show, I want to talk about the animation and the character design, and I want to talk about the characterization of the Fantastic Four. Full disclosure, I also forgot about this show, or maybe never even knew it existed in the first place. This show first aired in 2006, which is a year after the first live-action movie was released. I was a really big fan of that movie when I was a kid, so I'm surprised I never watched this attempt at brand synergy from Marvel. Apparently, this show had a pretty cursed broadcasting history, with only 8 of the 26 episodes being aired on Cartoon Network. Then in 2007, they brought the show back for even more brand synergy with the release of Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, but that run was also cut short. This series wasn't aired in its entirety until 2009, when Nicktoons acquired the show along with Wolverine and the X-Men and Iron Man: Armored Adventures. So maybe that's why no one remembers the show. Unlike the movies, however, the tone of the show is a lot lighter because it's aimed for kids, and with the exception of the archetypes of the Fantastic Four, which I'll talk about a little bit later, this show deviates pretty far from the movies. Obviously, with animation, there's a lot less limitations of what you can show on screen in terms of fleshing out the more fantastical world that the Fantastic Four live in. In the first movie, we get Dr. Doom, and then in the second movie, we get Dr. Doom again, Silver Surfer, and a big cloud that they call Galactus. Surprisingly, Silver Surfer or Galactus never appear in the show, but we do see Dr. Doom quite a bit, along with other Fantastic Four villains and appearances from different heroes in the Marvel Universe as well. We get the appearance of the Skrulls, and then later Super Skrull. Ronan the Accuser appears a few times. There's an episode with Annihilus and his bug army, Mole Man, Impossible Man, Puppet Master, and a few more. There's a line from Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes said by Hank Pym about the Fantastic Four that has always just kind of stuck with me ever since I heard it.
These Fantastic Four, as you call them, they are mortal heroes as well?
They're more like explorers. I think Reed said they were heading off to the Earth's core today.
And even though this show came out before that one, this show does a really good job of showing all the wild adventures that the Fantastic Four get up to. They don't really fight crime, they stop world-ending threats from time to time, but since this show is an anthology series, a lot of this kind of feels like you're watching Magic School Bus. Speaking of nostalgia, the animation in the show has a nostalgic quality to it as well. I think a lot of that has to do with the character designs and the era that this show was made in. Johnny has this awful early 2000s spiked hair and sideburns combo that I don't like, and it never grew on me throughout the entire duration of me watching this show. I guess that it was very early 2000s, but I still don't like it. Reed seems to be a lot younger, and that might have to do with his haircut as well. He's got a bit of fringe style downwards, which did grow on me pretty quickly. I like it. When the Thing wears civilian clothes, he wears this big jersey, which is really like probably the only thing that could ever fit him, so that kind of makes sense. And Susan has a pretty standard design, but I couldn't help but notice how pointy the top of her head is. Is that her hair doing that, or just the shape of her head? If it's her hair, ease up on the volume, girl, or even it out at the very least. I don't know why I found that so distracting, but I did. The actual Fantastic Four costumes I also didn't love at first, especially since they stray pretty far from any other iteration of the costume. There's a lot less blue and a lot more tan and orange, but after a while I settled into it. But what I didn't like about this is that the Thing doesn't have a suit. Instead, he just has a 4 spray painted on his chest, and this bothers me because 1, have a little bit more respect for yourself, man, and 2, it's not even perfectly even. Like, the lines don't connect, If you're going to do this, at least treat it like a tattoo and get it designed perfectly. But I do think that the suits work well in the context of this world. The technology is really advanced and it kind of fits the aesthetic of the Baxter Building and the whole show. Speaking of the Baxter Building, I love the reoccurring joke that the other tenants who live in the Baxter Building hate the Fantastic Four because their experiments are always causing chaos for the rest of the building or even the city.
Oh! They live upstairs.
This show also has some subtle comedic timing with some of the reaction shots that I think are really well done. And I think this has to do, in some part at least, with the animation of the time.
What are you doing, you numbskull? Not me! Them! Attack them! That man made fun of Hulk's mama!
The characterizations of the Fantastic Four are pretty much what you'd expect. Reed is the smartest man in the world. He's constantly fascinated by the dangerous situations that they're constantly in, and he's always the one who comes up with the plan to either stop or get out of the danger that they're in. Susan plays the den mother role as usual. She's kind of the voice of reason throughout this show and is kind of always in charge of supervising Johnny because Johnny Storm is insufferable in this show. Again, I get that it's a kid's show and that he's supposed to be the comic relief, but he's constantly escalating situations by saying some dumb shit, cracking the unfunniest jokes all the time, and is such an idiot he never can really comprehend the present danger that he's always in. He's also always pulling pranks on Ben, which after a while just seems like harassment. This is one of the downsides of having this show be an anthology series because the characters can never grow or change, so Johnny never learns a lesson. Or if there was one time where he did learn a lesson, I don't remember it because that growth is never carried into the next episode. And the Thing is the same old, lovable Yancey Street orphan that we all know and love. I want to talk about some notable episodes real quick because, as I mentioned earlier, there are other Marvel heroes that make an appearance in this show. In World's Tiniest Heroes, the Fantastic Four keep shrinking after exposure from the Microverse, and Hank Pym, aka Ant-Man, pulls up to help them. I honestly like the design of this suit, but I don't really like the design of the helmet. Plus, they gave Hank Pym a soul patch, so that's very 2000s. In the episode Hard Knocks, we get the appearance of Bruce Banner and the Hulk. I think this episode is really cool because we see the Hulk and the Thing actually duke it out, but it's not one of those episodes where the Hulk just comes in and washes the Fantastic Four. The Thing actually gets some hits in and appears to be a formidable opponent to the Hulk. In the episode Shell Games, we get to see Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, team up with the Fantastic Four. And one thing that I think is kind of notable about this episode is that this is pre-MCU, so Tony Stark still has a secret identity, and that secret identity being that Iron Man is Tony Stark's bodyguard. At first when I saw that, a part of me kind of wanted to see that in the MCU, but as I kept watching the show, I realized that it would not take long at all for the characters in the universe to figure out that Iron Man is Tony Stark. But I think that was still kind of cool to see because in this show, and in many other adaptations, the Fantastic Four don't have secret identities and they are very beloved by the public. They're basically celebrities, which is what it looks like they're doing in Fantastic Four First Steps. It looks like they're, like the Beatles. I just think that was kind of interesting to see because in the MCU, Iron Man is a celebrity, and in this show, he has a secret identity. In the episode Mole Hatton, Mole Man starts shrinking monuments and buildings from New York into Subterranea, and he also tries to recruit the Thing to join his cause because he views him as a monster. People in New York are kind of scared of him, and down in Subterranea, he can just be himself and not scare people. But obviously Ben doesn't take him up on that offer. In the episode Frightful, we get to see the Frightful Four act as this pseudo new and improved version of the Fantastic Four, as they try to discredit the legacy of the Fantastic Four by staging events and showing up to save the day. It was kind of crazy to see how quick the city switched up on them, but obviously Reed wasn't having any of that and he went out to prove their innocence. Namor appears twice in this series, first in the episode Imperious Rex, where he pulls up to the surface and is all like, hey, I'm gonna kill all you people if you don't stop polluting the ocean. The Fantastic Four try to go and negotiate with him in Atlantis, and he's like, no, I'm gonna kill you guys. The only way you're getting out of this is if Sue stays back with me, kind of hinting at that romance that Namor has always had for Susan Storm. And this is the only time in the series that Reed and Sue's relationship is ever hinted at. For once, Reed stops thinking about science and the fascination of the moment and starts thinking about if he actually has feelings for Susan. But like I said, that growth, that development is never hinted at in any other episode, so it still remains unclear if Susan and Reed are a couple in this show. Then Namor appears again in the episode Atlantis Attacks, seeking help from the Fantastic Four because Attuma has overthrown Atlantis and Namor needs their help to win Atlantis back. In the episode The Cure, Reed finally figures out a cure for Ben. The only downside is that he doesn't remember anything from his time as the Thing. He doesn't remember any of the memories they shared together. He doesn't remember any of the adventures they went on. He doesn't even remember transforming into the Thing. The last thing he remembers is prepping for the mission to space. There's kind of a wholesome moment between him and Alicia. He doesn't even remember who Alicia is, but she still tries to remind him on who he was in his time as a hero. But just because he's cured now doesn't mean that's the end of the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four hold tryouts to try to get a fourth member on their team, but this is when we get to see some of the lesser known characters like Flatman and Squirrel Girl, but we also get to see the person they ultimately choose to be the replacement is She-Hulk. She works well with the team and she looks good in the uniform, but ultimately she decides to step down because she realizes that the Fantastic Four are a family, not a team. He ultimately ends up reverting back to his form as the Thing, sacrificing his life as a human to help save people. And this episode ends on kind of a funny note because once he transforms back to the Thing, he doesn't remember anything from when he was a human briefly. So the last thing he remembers is getting prepped for the cure, but Reed ends up telling him that it didn't work out and they'll have to try another time. And the last episode I wanted to talk about in this video is the Contest of Champions. Ronan the Accuser is salty that the Fantastic Four kept beating him in previous episodes and hits up the Grandmaster and is all like, hey, can you stage a Contest of Champions? I'm really sick of the Fantastic Four. So the Fantastic Four have to compete against Ronan the Accuser, Super Skrull, Annihilus, and Impossible Man in a series of challenges for the fate of the world. I thought this was like a unique twist on the Contest of Champions because it's not just a gladiator match, a fight to the death. There's other skill and intelligence challenges that the Fantastic Four have to compete in. Overall, this isn't my favorite piece of Fantastic Four media, but it's up there, which is saying something because this show isn't great. That just goes to show you how wrong Marvel has treated the Fantastic Four throughout the decades. Hopefully Fantastic Four First Steps changes that and we get an amazing adaptation of Marvel's First Family. But I'd love to know what you think. Have you seen the show? And if so, do you enjoy it? Or is this your first exposure of knowing that this show even existed? Either way, I'd love to know in the comments below. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a like and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Huh?